What's going on, everybody? How y'all doing? So we're back with another one of the moments that get me hype. And today we want to do Batwing versus Massacre. And for those of you who know about the New 52, you are very versed in the DC universe. You know exactly who Batwing is. You more than likely know who Massacre is. For those who don't, I'll give a brief explanation of who these characters are, right? So first, I do want to point out that on my wall, if you look toward the bottom, and you might have to zoom in, but right between the Batman and the Venom comic is a Batwing comic. And this is the very comic that we're talking about. During the New 52, certain characters were introduced into the DC, one of them being Batwing. Batwing was Batman. He was a product of the Batman Incorporated. Batman Incorporated was Bruce's idea that a representation of Batman in multiple continents, in multiple countries, would help increase the peace, would help further his agenda of putting end or limiting crime in the world. So he established one in South America, Mexico, Canada, Australia. I believe there was like two or three in Europe. Batwing was Bruce's representation in Africa. The man that was chosen, his name was David Zimbabwe, and he took on the mantle of Batwing with the backing of Batman and his technology. During the first arc of this comic, Batwing faced a villain named Massacre. Massacre decided that the heroes of the past had failed him and failed his country and had not lived up to what they were supposed to. So he was assassinating them. He was going after them and eliminating them. David Zimbabwe, Batwing, had to figure out who Massacre was, who he was looking to attack next, and put a stop to him. When David was doing his research, when David was doing his investigation, he came across an old villain, an old hero, and he was conversating him when Massacre attacked that old hero, and David Zimbabwe was injured in that attack severely to the point where he lost consciousness. He was stabbed through the abdomen. Massacre ended up killing that hero and moving forward. When David Zimbabwe's allies got to him and took him back to his refuge, his counterpart or his support, I should say, I forget the man's name, so forgive me, but he's kind of like David's Alfred, you know. He's the one who backs him and takes care of him when he's wounded and helps give him that support behind the scenes. When he finally came to after his allies got him, Massacre had found another hero and was attacking that hero. This is all important on why this is a moment that gets me hyped. So David wakes up. Massacre's at that school where the old retired hero is teaching, and he's attacking him. David's in no condition to fight. He got stabbed through the abdomen, didn't miss all the vital organs, but he lost a lot of blood. And this right here is why it's a moment that gets me hyped, because that's life. See, he had an obligation, a responsibility. He had something that he needed and or wanted to get done, but he was not 100%. And that's usually how obstacles and opportunities come to us. That's usually how challenges and opposition happens. We are very rarely 100% when the storms come. We are very rarely at our best when trials and tribulations come knocking on our door. Now, what are you going to do in that situation? Are you going to use that as an excuse not to give everything that you do have? Are you going to use that as an excuse to bail out or walk away from your responsibility? Are you going to use that as an excuse to let this opportunity pass you by? Or are you going to mount up and face the problem with everything that you are capable of doing? David Zimbabwe, Batwing, decided he's mounting up. I wish I could show you the cinematography of this comic, especially with all the copyright going on. I don't want to get a copyright infringement, but it's so beautifully done, this story, because his counterpart is telling him that he shouldn't go. His counterpart is telling him that, you know, he needs to recover, and it switches scenes, and it shows Massacre and the hero colliding, and they're fighting, and finally Massacre gets an upper hand on the hero, and he cuts his arm off with the machete. That's Massacre's weapon of choice. And they're in a classroom fighting. You know, as I previously said, they're at a school. So Massacre is like, yes, see, you bleed just like any other man, and now you'll die just like any other man. And as he's moving in for the kill, Batwing just hits him with the right cross. It doesn't even show the full right cross or Batwing. It just shows that doosh, and Massacre goes flying across the classroom, stumbles, lands over the desk, and flies up against the wall. It then shows Massacre wiping the blood from his mouth, and he says, I heard about you. I knew that we would cross paths eventually. I'd like to introduce myself. My name is Massacre, and my power is death. Now, I'm going to pause right there. That is how much harder could, you get a villain stance? How much harder could you get a state of intention? Like, you know what's about to happen. I'm about to give it to you. And Batwing's reply was so on the level. It was so beautiful. It was right up there with it. It was the perfect reply. So in a comic book, when the artist wants to get a dramatic effect, they'll give you a splash page. And a splash page is basically both pages, but it's one full picture. It's a giant blown up picture, or it's half of it's one page or 2 pages. So when you go to the next page, it shows Batwing, and it's an angle like Massacre's looking up at him. So they're showing you that angle. The sun's behind him, so only pieces of his body and his uniform is completely. It looks almost like he's in the shadow because the sun is behind him, and it's blinding Massacre, right? And it shows the thought bubble, shows the thoughts that are going on in David Zimbabwe's head, in Batwing's head. Batwing saying to himself, he says, I can feel the chest cavity of the suit starting to fill up with blood. That first punch reopened my stitches right away. And the shot of adrenaline that I got is already starting to wear off. Looks like I'm going to have to do all this on rage. Then it shows his word bubble, what he's actually saying. And after Massacre told him, my name is Massacre, my power is death, David says, my name is Batwing, and I'm going to beat you till you can't stand. And he's pointing at him. And that's how the comic ends. And I just love it. I love it because it's like he's not 100%. He shouldn't have gone. He has every reason to quit, every reason to throw in the towel, every reason to say, you know what? Destiny, the universe, fate, whatever you want to call it, says that I'm not supposed to have what I want. And he decides, you know what? I don't care. I don't care what destiny says. I don't care what fate says. I don't care what the universe is trying to tell me. I want something, and I'm going to do everything in my power to get it. At the end of the day, that's what it boils down to. What do you want? What does it take to get what you want? And what are you willing to do? Because if you know what it takes, if you know what you want, and you're willing to do what it takes, nothing can stand in your way. And I take that as an example when the trials and the tribulations come, when the storms come, when the challenges come, when the opposition is at its fierce and I'm not at my best. I remember, that's life. We're not always going to have the opportunity to prepare, but the champions are the ones who can still execute.